is a beautiful, sunny, crisp day here in Najaf. And it's especially great after the torrential downpour yesterday coming from Baghdad. And I'm walking around the city to hopefully find Wadi Salam, which is a gigantic graveyard, purportedly the world's largest. And even though I've been to Najaf before, I've actually never been there, so I thought I'd just go check it out for a couple of minutes and see what I can explore. That didn't take long. I didn't try and resort to maps or even really ask anybody where it was. I just kind of figured the cemetery was uphill from the shrine complex, and I just stumbled upon one of the entrances. And it is exactly as described. It is massive, it's jumbled, and it looks incredibly interesting. I've always been fascinated by the Shia culture of martyrdom. I just think it's a really interesting facet of Iranian, Iraqi, Lebanese, and other societies that adhere to the Shia branch. It's really interesting. I don't know. I think on a couple of levels, it's just the way in which it regards the human form, and the way at which it kind of just holds ancestors who've left this earth in high esteem. To me, there's something kind of almost romantic about it. I don't know. Maybe it's just naive on my part, but it's very interesting. Assalamu alaikum. Wadi Salam indicates the canyon or valley of peace, the final resting place for the dead and for those martyred in Iraq's decades of conflict, or other conflicts further afield, where Shia militant groups and militia groups have been involved and been able to transport the deceased here to Najaf in central Iraq. This is kind of exactly as I imagined. Imams Hussein and Ali everywhere. It's a very somber place, and yet the people that I've encountered seem pretty friendly. It's like a city within a city here in Najaf. Something you instantly realize when you enter Wadi Salam is that it's not just big in area, but it's just incredibly dense. There seems to be just grave on top of grave on top of grave. It's this looks like it's got to be the densest organized cemetery in the world. It's astounding. And this isn't simply a historical site either. This is very much a living city of the dead. You can see this man here was killed just last year. So this is an ongoing and active place. It's not like some of the historic cemeteries in, say, Savannah, Georgia, or Paris, you know, where you go to visit a famous grave. This is very much an active place. And you can hear, I don't know if you can hear it on the GoPro microphone, but you can hear the muezzin, who's the man who does the call to prayer and stuff. There is sort of an ongoing, I don't know if he's perhaps reciting surahs or something from the Quran, but it seems like there's just a constant blessing going on the edge of the cemetery. The sheer intricacy and artistry here is really impressive. You can tell just so much effort is put into this. The cemetery seems to be in varying states of disrepair. I imagine that the task of trying to maintain this place would take an army unto itself. Oh, I don't know all the social mores here, without a doubt, but an old lady walking by in an abaya just gave me a sweet, and I'm like, well, it's Ramadan, isn't everybody fasting? Maybe she isn't, but she insists that I take it and have it. And I thought my aim was to not eat publicly to try and fit in, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna have this sweet. And it's incredibly delicious. In fact, Najaf seems to get so few foreigners, or at least maybe a few Westerners or people who just aren't Shia pilgrims, that last night I had people ask me if I was Pakistani, if I was Iranian, or if I was Lebanese. So maybe the lady who gave me the sweet thought I was another nationality. In fact, this place is so vast, there's actually a transportation network within the cemetery, and there are traffic jams here. That is just how huge it is. You can observe some generational differences here because there are people who died in the Ba'athist era, which is the era before 2003, where the posters for their graves, such as the men, there are just kind of ordinary people wearing dress clothes and things like that, at least for the men. And then here and there, this gentleman here obviously fought for what looks to be the Iraqi military. He's got an Iraq flag patch on his vest there. And this young man, I can't be sure, but these are probably from the recent conflict against I.S. between 2014 and 2017. See, a lot of young men are holding guns here. You can tell that by looking at the way the graves are marked and decorated, just how many conflicts Iraq has been through in the last decades. And there are periods of peace, of which hopefully this is one in 2023 as I'm recording this, but I mean, you can just see how much Iraq has suffered writ large. As the name suggests, Wadi Salam is quite a peaceful place, if macabre. It kind of occupies a space between the calm and almost soothing to the dark and painful, because this is a field of martyrs at the end of the day, and that's what it's really about. But everyone who's here, the people I've encountered, people are waving and friendly. I mean, a lot of the visitors seem to be in good spirits for one reason or another. I guess it's just the nature. And because the cemetery is so jam-packed, some of the dead are actually buried in catacombs beneath mausoleums like this one. This is basically a door to the afterlife, if you will. And I've read that up to 50 can be buried in some of these sites. And I don't know, this one seems particularly not new, but newish and sort of well kept up. I don't know if that denotes wealth or religious authority. I imagine it's one of the two or both. In 2014, when IS took over about 40% of Iraq, the Hashd-e-Shaabi were formed, and they're better known in the West, in the Anglophone media, as either the Popular Mobilization Forces or the Popular Mobilization Units. And they did a good deal of the fighting against IS from basically 2014 to 2017, as I previously mentioned. And I think that with so many of them having been martyred, along with incidents like the Camp Spiker massacre, which is where a group of about 1,700 plus cadets were slaughtered by IS on the banks of the Tigris, near to Crete. And I would imagine that being a cemetery caretaker or undertaker or caretaker is probably pretty in demand in the last decade or so, because the Takfiri war, which is the war where hardline Sunnis can declare other Muslims, Shia or otherwise, or fellow Sunnis, as apostates. And this is part of how IS claimed that the Shia were polytheists, and because of their veneration of the 12 Imams, starting with Imam Ali here in Najaf. And I just imagine that, you know, in a very, to put it in kind of a dark tone, I would imagine that a lot more graves had to be dug when that war happened. And now Iraq is at peace, but you can see, I mean, some of the graves that I've passed by in my afternoon here, you can see that some of these young men were buried not all that long ago. It's 2023, and the war against IS ended formally in late 2017, but really I think they declared an end to it in 2019, when the Battle of Baghouz in neighboring Syria ended the territorial caliphate. And thus, I think the Wadi Salam has been able, for really sad reasons, it's been able to maintain its relevance, particularly in the last, not just 20 years, but really in the last, I would say, 9 to 10 years. That experience was both subtle and intense. Going to leave, there was a traffic jam, but it actually took me a while to get out of there. And I'm going to walk back to my Pilgrim Hotel and just chill for a bit. Going to give it a second try to see if I can make it into the shrine with the GoPro, but last night they told me that GoPros or action cameras were not allowed, so we'll see what happens. I was swiftly busted with the GoPro, and a couple of guys who were really friendly, who actually, one of them spoke a little bit of English and told me that his brother lived in Texas. I had to check the camera in at like sort of a shoe locker type place, which I'm not crazy about. They give you a little token and you turn that back in to get it, but at least I get to see the shrine. I just thought it would be cool to be able to capture it with a GoPro, but I know that they have a thing against higher end cameras. reason they apparently have these red and black banners up is because a few days ago, the day before Easter actually, was the anniversary of Imam Ali's martyrdom when he was assassinated in the Grand Mosque of Kufa. And so this banner is a celebration of his life and martyrdom here. One quick comment I'll make about circumambulating Ali's tomb is that it is not for the faint of hearted if you're even remotely claustrophobic. It's body pressing against body, as people venerate Imam Ali, and everyone is trying to get to his tomb, to touch it, and to be as close to the Imam as they can. And so it's like, yeah, it's a serious body-crushing situation. But one of the things I'll say is that this place is very efficiently managed. They've got minders everywhere. I was at one point told that it's not okay to photograph the tomb from too close. I don't know if that's a crowd control issue or a religious edict issue. Who knows? But this place is very well run. An interesting side note to the shrine of Imam Ali is that apparently there are hadiths, which are sayings attributed in Islamic history that aren't a formal part of the Quran, that Adam, as in Adam and Eve, and Noah, who is known in Arabic as Nuh, are both buried here along with Imam Ali. And from what I've read online, it's kind of a debatable thing, and I only know this as the last resting place of Imam Ali. As far as I had known, actually Noah was buried in Turkey along the border with Syria. But then again, if you ask Afghans, they say that Imam Ali is buried at the shrine of Hazrat Ali in Mazar-e-Sharif. So I think a lot of these issues, I think in the history of early Islam, are debated. But what can't be debated is how incredible this place is. And you can't believe that you're just in the middle of a rock, and it's so ornate and so beautiful. And the people are incredibly friendly. You just have to know not to bring in a professional camera or a GoPro. But I mean, it's actually quite a lovely experience. Now this is what is known as a turba, and this is basically a clay tablet that the Shia use to press their head to, and it is meant to be made from the soil of Karbala, and it's supposed to have medicinal properties while you make salat, which is the prayer in Shiism. It's a part of the 12 belief to use the turba. You know, I'm reflecting about my couple of days here and really glad that I came down to Najaf. I was having a great time in Baghdad, but I was also getting really frustrated there by the lack of access for some of the things that I wanted to photograph and stuff that I wanted to do creatively. And Najaf's also been slightly frustrating because it's not nearly as photogenic as it once was. When the Ba'ath Party was ousted 20 years ago and the shrine was kind of untouched, and Iranian pilgrims were pouring over the border by what seemed like the tens of thousands. I mean, that was a really exciting time. But now the pilgrimage tourism has become much more of an industry. The place is much better organized, and that has a lot of benefits too. But, so I can't do quite what I'd wanted to do here, but I think this has overall been a good decision. I think this is the street where I stayed in one of these hotels 20 years ago. I was wondering while I was here where that was, and this street is totally dilapidated. And I remember my hotel was just steps away from the shrine. Just look at these rich pomegranates. Absolutely incredible. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.